One of our most maybe memorable genera of woody plants in Wisconsin is this one here. This is the maple genus. Maple is the genus Acer. And in older literature, you'll see this as its own family, Aceraceae. But in more recent time with molecular data, this has been lumped in with a larger family, Sapindaceae, that shares a few characteristics, but we have so many maples locally, and I think they're kind of memorable on their own. So we're going to cover them as their own genus, Acer maples, distinguished by having opposite phyllotaxis, and often this characteristic maple leaf, but not always. There's a noteworthy member of the maple genus that I think deserves its own mention. This is the box elder. So its common name is box elder, and its scientific name is Acer negundo. And it's in, as you can see, it's in the maple genus, but it is not, it doesn't share the common name of maple, and it's different from a bunch of the other maples in having compound leaves. So typically trifoliolate. They can also have pinnately compound with even more leaflets. And otherwise, it does conform to what we expect for the maples of having the opposite phyllotaxis. So in these woody plants, the phyllotaxis of the leaves tells us also about the arrangement of the branches. You would have opposite branching in this plant group that has opposite leaves. So typical maple leaf on the right, box elder leaf on the left. Still lots in common between them. Lots of different kinds of inflorescences. The flowers are kind of too small to for the most people to spend a lot of time noticing and identifying them. So I'll just say that there's lots of different kinds of flowers, many of them in this kind of reduced format here, getting wind pollinated. So lots of stamens thrust out into the air to release lots of pollen, and then sometimes at the same time, sometimes at a different time, there'll be large stigmas collecting the pollen. And you can see we've got some with these long pendant pedicels, other ones that are barely visible pedicels on there, some with this dangling panicle here in this other species. So a few different varieties. And then commonly we see lots of unisexual flowers. And if they're unisexual, they can be on monoecious plants or dioecious plants. So some cases here of the male structures on the right here. These are male flowers with stamens out, and then another species or another individual with the stigmas out in the female phase. So lots of pollen and big stigmas. Those are characteristic of wind pollination. There are plants in this maple group that do have bisexual hermaphroditic flowers. Lots of variety in the flowers, of course. In addition to the leaves and the phyllotaxis, one of the most distinctive characteristics of the maples are these fruits. They call them helicopters sometimes, and they're coming from two carpels that are fused together. And to do their helicopter function, they actually end up splitting apart. So they are one seed inside of this half of the schizocarp with a big wing that makes it a samara. And then it splits apart from the other half at this seam here. So these two pieces end up going their separate ways. That makes it a schizocarp, and the wing helping them to get dispersed on the wind. Nice, almost mature set of fruits here. And then over here, just getting started. Kind of neat, you can see the ovary kind of flare out with this wing pretty early on in the fruit development. Maples we have in Wisconsin, and of course, places farther north. Good dose of places that are making maple syrup. So northern Wisconsin makes its share of maple syrup. And this is a process, I just grabbed a graphic from the internet, but kind of highlighting these plants as an interesting source of edible item for us. So you basically bleed the tree out at a particular time of year, around the time when winter is ending, but spring hasn't yet begun for this plant. And you take the sap out, and the sap is a little more sugary at that time. And then a big part of the process is to boil down the watery sap, and eventually by boiling off the water, you condense the sugar and make a nice sweet syrup out of that. So maybe you'll get a chance to make your own maple syrup someday.